G20 summit in Africa and India's labor code overhaul. The world is going through big changes: wars, economic uncertainty, inequality, and political drama everywhere. In the middle of all this, two major developments recently made headlines. The G20 summit held in Africa for the first time ever, and India's plan to finally implement its long pending labor codes. Both events affect millions of people, shape global politics, and show how countries are trying to respond to new challenges. Let's break it all down. The G20 summit in Johannesburg, a global classroom with mixed vibes. The 2024 G20 summit in Johannesburg, South Africa was historic. Why? Because for the first time in history, the big economic club met on African soil, a continent that has often been sidelined in global decision making. This time, Africa was not just hosting the event, it was also participating as a full member through the African Union, a membership given during India's G20 presidency in 2023. So the summit came with stronger global south energy, more voices from the developing nations, more focus on real world issues, and more calls for fairness. What were the big issues? Leaders discussed almost everything troubling the world today: wars, inequality, inflation, political instability, energy crisis, climate change. Basically, the world's report card is not great, and the leaders talked about how to fix it. They emphasized the need for just, comprehensive, and lasting peace in conflict zones like Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ukraine, and Palestine. All discussions pointed towards the UN Charter, basically saying let's follow global rules instead of power politics. India's role, a bag full of ideas. Prime Minister Narendra Modi made several suggestions, kind of like a student who comes to class extra prepared with six colorful projects. His proposals focused on development, traditional knowledge, healthcare, training, and technology. Here are the six initiatives India proposed: Traditional Knowledge Repository, a huge library of global traditional wisdom. G20 Africa Skills Multiplier, training 1 million people across Africa. Global Healthcare Response Team, a worldwide team ready for medical emergencies, countering the drug terror nexus, targeting the dangerous link between drugs and terrorism. Open Satellite Data Partnership, sharing satellite data for agriculture, fishing, disasters, and more. Critical Minerals Circulatory Initiative, better use and recycling of vital minerals. All of these ideas focused on one theme: let's rethink development, not just GDP, but human well being. The awkward part: America was missing. Every big event has that one awkward moment. Here, it was the complete absence of US President Donald Trump. Not only did Trump skip the summit, but the US government also boycotted it entirely, sending only a diplomat as an observer. This is the first time the US walked away from a G20 summit. And the reason? The US accused South Africa of discriminating against white minority farmers. The irony: South Africa suffered under apartheid for decades, and now it's being accused of discrimination by the West. The bigger concern is this: if the US, the world's largest economy, steps back from the G20, does it weaken the whole group? Especially since America is supposed to lead the G20 in 2026. Many leaders avoided directly criticizing the US, but their silence raised eyebrows. The summit's message, Ubuntu. The final declaration used the African philosophy Ubuntu, I am because we are. A reminder that the world works best through cooperation, not ego. Ironically, this message becomes even more meaningful when major powers start drifting away. India's labor codes, big reform, big expectations. Now let's shift from global politics to something that affects India's everyday workers and industries, the labor codes. What's the big deal? The center has finally decided to implement the four labor codes passed between 2019 and 2020. These codes replace 29 old, confusing labor laws and aim to simplify everything related to wages, working conditions, industrial relations, and social security. Business groups call this India's biggest reform in decades. Why were they delayed? States had to draft their rules. COVID 19 disrupted everything. Differences between unions, governments, and industries slowed down progress. But now, with most states ready, the center wants to move ahead. What changes will workers see? A simpler wage system, updated social security norms, new rules for working hours, safety guidelines, better dispute resolution processes, more flexibility for employers. India needs jobs, lots of them. Around 12 million people enter working age every year. According to the economic survey, we need 78.5 lakh non farm jobs annually until 2030 just to keep up. Without smoother labor laws, this is impossible. But unions are not happy. Labor representatives feel the reform lean too much toward employers. They say many worker friendly recommendations, such as those from the 2002 National Labour Commission, were ignored. However, the bigger truth is this: the nature of work itself is changing. Gig jobs, platform work, AI, automation, these are redefining what we call employment. Old laws cannot manage new realities. India needs modern laws, but also fair ones. India has a long tradition of tripartite consultation: workers, employers, and government sitting together. The Indian Labour Conference, ILC, the main platform for this, hasn't met since 2015. That's a decade. Prime Minister Modi earlier promised that labor laws would be changed only after wide consultation. With such a massive transformation underway, it's important to hold the 47th Indian Labour Conference soon and get everyone on the same page. Both the G-20 summit in Africa and India's labor code reforms highlight the same reality. The world is changing too fast, and everyone needs to adjust. The G-20 showed rising tensions, shifting alliances, and the growing voice of the global south. India played a constructive role with practical initiatives, but the US absence cast a shadow. On the other hand, India's labor codes promise simpler laws and more opportunities, but they must be implemented wisely with proper consultation so workers don't feel left behind while industries modernize. In a world full of uncertainty, wars, climate issues, economic instability, cooperation, fairness, and innovation matter more than ever. Whether it's global leadership or national labor reforms, the message remains the same: I am because we are.